That's who they were scared of at the time. Then there was a picture of Dr. Clark, and then there were a few others, and of course, what Schlessinger's was trying to do was to remember something that had never happened, a united America. He said, so this was a group of people who by remembering, notice now, what was the crime? Remembering. Because if you remember, then he sees that as dismembering America. But if we remember, we see that as unifying Africans. And of course that's the problem, the existence of African people. I remember that New York has burial grounds. And somebody remembered. I know that Brother James Smalls has been involved with that. I believe Brother Lynn and others, and they've been digging up stuff. And I remembered that just a few years ago, people said there was no slavery in New York. And now I just got a book from Amazon the other day, came to my house, about this thick, on slavery in New York. And it turns out not only was there slavery, this was one of the biggest slave areas of any city, any large city. New York had a thriving, decades-old slave trade and operation that we forgot. Everybody forgot. Until they dug up, they kept digging. It's interesting, isn't it, how we don't have the money to do all this digging, but people who do dig keep digging up our stuff. They dig up pyramids, tombs, temples, mummies, and all of that, hoping that it's theirs, but they help us to remember. So it's interesting that in the New York Burial Grounds project, that one of the things they dug up was people who remembered, because on their coffins they had the Sankofa symbol right there on the coffin. Same symbol that they put in the wrought iron in North Carolina, because they were the people making those iron fences. They put Sankofa in the fences, saying they wanted to go home. The Georgia Writers Project that interviewed Africans said that everybody dreamed about going back. And that's where we get these kid stories now, but they were adult stories then. The people could fly. And that's what they said. All you had to do is remember certain words that had power, and you could lift yourself up and take yourself back, because the goal was to go back. Go back to what? To go back in forward time, actually. To go back, to go forward. In order to, what is the back? It's back to unity, back to coherence, back to sanity, back to power. So you can do what? So I can use it now. That's why you go back and get an egg out of your behind if you're a chicken, or the bird, the Sankofa bird, takes the egg out of behind. And what is the egg other than the symbol of potential? The egg has all that it will become in it. It's already been fertilized. It has all that it will become. All you got to do is sit there and give it a warm environment. It will become its potential. I remembered forgetting, and I think Baba Smalls and Jeffries were involved in this too. They're always somewhere in the middle of stuff. And that was taking Crystal and Carson back home, when the DNA found out that they actually had an African from Jamaica and an African from New York City, by DNA that come from Ghana, connected with Ghana. And they took them home in style, put them on the water in a ship, and brought them to the dungeon back through the door that has now been renamed Door of Return. They said you weren't coming back. They said, but we back. And marched them through that door, and then up into the interior, to the last place where Africans got a bath before they came down to be brutally treated and handled in the enslavement. So I remember that too. And there's so much to remember. I remember forgetting. I remember that when I grew up, Timbuktu was a word that described something bad that would happen to you. Africans said that. Africans from Timbuktu, I'm sure the DNA will show, the grandchildren of Africans from Timbuktu, without memory, came to think of home as alien and came to think of an alien place as home. Memory is a funny thing. But then all of a sudden now you can go back and find out stuff that I couldn't find out when I was a child. Some of our greatest historians, they knew it was there, but some of them didn't have the documents to fill out the picture. They knew the story. They knew that Timbuktu had great university, for example. And when I get ready to show some slides in just a moment, hopefully you'll be able to see some of them. You notice that my slides are foggy, and that's because we were bringing the projector in and it rolled down the stairs, and so it jammed the lens, and so I can't turn it in focus. That's why it looks like that. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to see enough that you'll bear with me. Now, if you're sitting up close, you can see it on the screen of the computer, and if you're taking photographs with the cameras, I would suggest that you focus on the lens, on the screen of the computer rather than up here, because you're not going to be able to get any of the real good stuff, at least for the quality that the camera needs. Hopefully it'll be big enough so that you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to present. But this forgetting, this Timbuktu, how many manuscripts are there now? Or are there any now? Yep, turns out the archives of the university are still operating. Apparently they never shut down. They're still in Sankore Mosque, and there's about 18,000 manuscripts in Sankore Mosque. When I got to go there, I saw those manuscripts, and actually we got to handle some. And then recently, New York Times said that they didn't discover, but they noticed or were told that there were about 100,000 manuscripts in Timbuktu, not in the archives, in the homes of the children and grandchildren of the professors at that university. They preserve those. Most people keep those books in their houses. Yeah, well, that's not strange, because to Africans, books were the most precious thing you could have. And that, according to Ahmed Baba, he had the smallest library on the campus. And there would be 1,600 and more books in the libraries. That meant in the houses of the professors, in their personal library, so that you didn't have to have all your stuff in the university library. And then the New York Times, in the same article, says there are 1 million manuscripts in Mali. That means all over Mali. The other two university towns, Jenny and Gao, and other places where scholars were. That means scholars all over Mali. That meant literacy all over Mali. Almost everywhere you went, Mali was the one place where you have literacy in terms that we understand now. Most places had literacy in other terms, symbols and things like that. So I remembered that we forgot that, and that this is a shock. So last week, into my office walked a preacher from the Interdenominational Theological Seminary and a young man from Mali. And they had a suitcase with 25 of the manuscripts from the library of Timbuktu. Because they're right now trying to, he has lots more, and he had a letter from the Antiquities Department indicating that he had the permission, these were authentic, and so forth. And then they told me something that they had not done. They said they had a lot of people want to give them bunches of money, but they're not us, and they want to take the manuscripts and do what they want to do with them. You know, those manuscripts need to be digitized, for example, and translated, and then taught, because some of them are really important. Like one manuscript that we saw, they told us, the librarian said this was a manuscript written by Ahmed Baba, and that the manuscript was taking